I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Joe from Texas. Come on down, Joe.
We have a crisis in this country, and it's called the national debt. We owe too much money to foreign countries. Social Security is running out. What we need to do is we need to find a candidate on either side that has the debt on their mind. We have an addiction in this country of spending more than we take in. There's no reason for that. You couldn't run your house, you couldn't run your business if you spent 30% more than you take in every month or every year. We can look out the windshield now and get this thing straight, but we got to have somebody, man or woman, that's got the backbone to say enough is enough.
Welcome to the Joe from Texas podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Mihailo. I'm here with the man himself, Joe from Texas, Mr. Joseph Penland. Thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it.
Well, Steph, it's good to be with you, but it's just Joe. We don't have any Joseph down here.
I know. I just, my mom, God bless her soul, looking down upon us, would not think kindly if I said anything but Mr. Penland, but I greatly appreciate that. So, Joe, you are literally living the arc of the American dream. You grew up with nothing and an amazing mom, worked hard, built an immensely successful business. You're so incredibly good with various charities in and around Beaumont, Texas, where you are right now. Amazing family, children, great-grandchildren. A lot of folks can think, you know what, this is the perfect guy to basically ride into the Texas sunset, retire, go your merry way, but you're doing the exact opposite. You are taking on this fight to reduce the $34 trillion national debt. So why is this so important to you, sir? Why take on this really big but important battle for the American people?
Well, you know, when you look at what you mentioned about our upbringing when we were poor and it was hard to make it and everything, there's a lot of people suffering like that today. And, you know, just because I was one of the fortunate ones, God blessed my family and us to get out here and make what we made. I don't think it's for me to just sit here and hoard it up. What can I do to help more people? You know, because I remember when people helped us. I remember when we got stuff from the church, or I remember when the man at the store would bring us, you know, let us have things to help my mama with feeding us children and my dad. So, you know, if you've been helped and it's in your heart that you appreciated that help, then if you ever get to where you can, then I think it's our duty as humans to help one another. Now, the reason I'm taking the path that I am now, Steph, is this. I can help several thousand people in Beaumont, Texas, in my Hardin County where I live. I can help a few thousand people financially. I can't help millions with what I've made. I've been blessed, but I can't help literally millions of people. But we got 330 plus million people in this country that are going to suffer if we don't get a handle on our spending. And so I would rather go out here and spend the next year of the prior year plus this year coming up trying to educate America that we need to have something better than just a promise from a candidate that looks good, sounds good, and comes across good. What is he or she actually going to do for you and your family and your children and the people that are not born in this country yet? Because this country's not gone completely to the wolves yet. But if we continue down this path, it will be. So I'd rather stand up now while I still can. I'll be 74 at the election, and that'll be good. You know, I don't need America's vote for me. I don't need America's money. I'll spend mine, and I'll use what the good Lord's blessed us to have. But we've got to get a handle on this country, and we got to stop the bickering in Washington, or we're never going to get a handle on it. And I don't know if God wants us to have a different choice this year. Maybe we have to have a third choice. Like when Ross Perot ran, bless his heart, God rest his soul. But he knew we had a problem with $4 trillion, and here we are now at 34. It's unimaginable that a country that was handed to a group of people after World War II as the superpower, as the ultimate superpower, victorious over the war, came through that with hardly any problems in our country as far as our plants, our refineries, our highways, and all that. We quit making planes and tanks and started making combines and tractors. We led the world in manufacturing and farm producing and everything. And now we're second, third, fourth, or fifth. That's ridiculous. And we're borrowing money when we had no debt then. Now you tell me why nobody should sit back on the sideline and say, well, I can't do nothing about it. And there's nothing one man can do. My one vote won't turn the tide, but if I can convince 10 or 15 million people that this is what we need to look at, that'll sway this election. If you look at Donald Trump today and you offer him $15 or $20 million, or you look at Joe Biden, you offer him $15 or $20 million, that don't move the needle for him. Get them 15 million votes. They'll pay attention to that.
Amen to that. And don't you think, Joe, that you're not a celebrity? You're definitely not a politician. You're just a humble, hardworking, God-fearing guy from Texas who cares about America and wants to reduce the national debt. Don't you think that message coming from you and not from some special interest group or a politician, don't you feel as though that carries a lot more weight of, hey, I'm just the average American and I'm trying to fix and solve this crisis?
Sure it does. You know, we talked last night to the local Chamber of Commerce banquet up here in Hardin County. The 300 people, that's the size of the venue. They had me be the keynote speaker, and I visited with them for about 15 minutes. Afterwards, there's a lot of people. I got a standing ovation when I got through. Afterwards, a lot of people came up to me, got information from Scott, how to contact us, how to look at what we're doing and everything. They're interested in it. And like I told them, listen, I'm going to go out there and vet these candidates. You know, no more of these just promises. Hey, if you do this, I'll vote for me, I'll do this. And then they never look back at you. We have to have a big enough block of votes that they really pay attention and do some of the things like what happened with Newt Gingrich in the 90s, the contract with America. So we have our own contract now that we've devised. And it's a work in progress, and yet they can go on our website and take a look at it. But it hits the key issues, the real core problems that this country has. We've got a lot of problems from the border to you name it, crime in the cities, you know, everything running rampant. We got a lot of problems, drugs and all that. But if you can't pay your bills, every one of those problems will overcome you anyway.
You mentioned the website, and I do want to give the website, joefromtexas.com. That's joefromtexas.com. Now let's talk, Joe, about the nitty gritty of the national debt itself. And you mentioned, you know, Ross Perot. He sounded the alarm back in 1992 when it was $4 trillion. Now it's up to $34 trillion. The nonpartisan independent Congressional Budget Office says it could get up to $50+ trillion in the next 10 years. So how serious of a problem is this for America? And let's just not talk about border, not talk about foreign aid, but just the national debt. How serious is that one problem that impacts many others for the United States?
It encompasses all of the problems we have. You know, if you got a leaking roof, that's a problem. Your stove's not working, that's a problem. Your car needs tires, that's a problem. But if you can't pay for any of it and they come get it all and you're in the street, that's a bigger problem. We have to pay our bills. And if we let this thing get much bigger than it is today, and within 2 years, we're going to be spending $1 trillion a year on interest. Now, that's money that could go to help Americans. That could solve a lot of problems we have in this country. And you could spread it out on any of the problems that we have already. But when you pay interest at the end of the year, you got a receipt. You didn't get anything for that, nor did you move the needle on the debt. And that's what's wrong with this country. We keep stacking debt on top of debt on top of debt. We borrow money. Every check the government writes today for postal people, government employees, you name it, that's a hot check. We don't have any money in the bank. If we don't extend our barn at the end of the year, we default on our debt. How can a country as strong and as mighty as the United States of America get themselves into this kind of situation? And we've done it basically in 24 years. And we can say we had $4 trillion in debt when Ross Perot said, hey, that's enough. And Clinton was there for 4 years, moved up to 5. But in his last 4 years with Newt Gingrich contract with America, they balanced it 4 years, paid it down twice. So he ended his 8 years with $1 trillion difference. Okay, that's bad in its own right, but it's not. Look what's happened the last 24 years. We go from actually 4 trillion when the alarms sound. It'll be 36 when Biden finishes first and only term. God, please make it just one term. When that happens, we're going to have 36. That's 9 times what Ross Perot said was unsustainable. When you have that much debt, like a family with credit card debt, they can't pay anything on the principal. They're barely paying the interest. That smothers that family. That keeps them from having a vacation. It keeps them from adding another room onto the house when they need to, or any of the necessities. There's where this country is today. And the worst part about it, you're born it from countries that a lot of them don't like us. That's a dangerous situation.
Joe, you mentioned the business sector, the private sector, how they would never function like this in government. Can you let our listeners know about the fact that you literally are living the American dream, built your business up from scratch? What exactly is it that you do in Beaumont, Texas?
Well, what we do is we have a ground protection product that we put down on soft ground to move heavy equipment across it for whether it's construction jobs, highway jobs, building buildings, bridges, all kinds of heavy equipment work, the oil field mainly, and it ventures into the entertainment industry also. I started that business, may have been 50 years ago. And it started literally in my mother's backyard. I knew about matting because it was part of what I was doing in heavy construction and as being an iron worker touring around the United States working. So I seen a need. There was nobody that rented them ready available. So I took a shot at it. I borrowed the $2,750 and got started, and I've been blessed. And I've got, May will be 50 years. My number one superintendent's been with me 48 of those 50 years. My secretary that pays our bills been with us 43 years. I've got a lot of 40-year people, a lot of 35-year people. We have 155 people. We're not that big of a company, but we believe in God and we come to work every day with the right attitude. And we want to help. We know that part of every dollar this company makes is going to help somebody that doesn't have what we have.
Amen. Amen to that. But now let's take and compare how you run your business and how successful businesses run their businesses compared to the federal government. Could you or any successful business in the United States of America earn money and be successful and be sustainable with the way the federal government runs its budgets?
No, and I'm glad you ended that with budget, because they never have their budget on time and they never meet their budget. You know, if a bank was going to loan, me and you were partners in a venture, and we come to them with a business plan and a budget and so forth, and we lay it out to them, and we borrow X amount of money, and we have our own capital to go with also, which the government has no capital. But if we had our own capital, and okay, so now we put this business plan together. First year rolls by, and Joe and Steph comes in, and we missed it by $1 million. We're in the hole. Matter of fact, we need to borrow another $1 million just to pay the interest to the bank that we owe. Well, okay, let's say they carry us that year. You think they'd carry you 24 years in a row? No, they'd all get fired. There's no business can run that way. The federal government is they're out there, they're solo. They make the rules as they go. They don't even have to abide by the same rules that they make. And nobody's held accountable. I'm not saying we have all bad politicians, because we do not. We have a lot of great men and women serving this country. But you got a few at the top, and you got a few that's been there way too long. You know, like me, okay, I'm 74 years old. I can still come here and work every day. I can't hang iron on top of a dome or bridge anymore. There's certain things that you have to set aside and say, I can't do that anymore. It doesn't mean that that you need to go to the rocking chair like George Jones said on the porch. I'm not ready for that yet. Okay, I still got some time left. But no business, to answer your question specifically, no business could run 20, 24, 25 years in a row in a hole and go so far in the hole that there is absolutely no way to come out. The board of directors, the CEOs of that bank would have got fired a long time ago. And guess who looks over the banks? Oh, that's right. It's the federal government, the FDIC. They wouldn't let us loan you money, Steph, for 15 or 20 years if you never made a payment. Think of that. They're in a league of their own.
They wouldn't give me 15 or 20 bucks, let alone $15 million. And
That's right.
Joe, I think you're selling yourself short, though. I think if someone says, "Hey, go climb that dome and throw some steel on your shoulder," I think it'd be on that ladder. I think you're selling yourself
Well,
short. I think you'd be able to do it.
well, nowadays they use man lifts, so maybe I could operate that.
We'll put you behind the truck.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears because it's an interesting point that you made too about people paying attention and people being aware. And Joe, me and you, and I'm sure and millions of others watch the Super Bowl this year. And my wife is a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not much of a fan, and literally people around the globe. And this is not a knock against them in any way, shape, or form, but millions of people are aware. Okay, this football player and this mega pop star are dating. Let's watch them at the Super Bowl, and so much attention is focused on that. From your perspective, then, why is it so important to get your message out that while football is nice, music is nice, folks, Rome is burning. We have to start paying attention to the national debt. This is what's important in America. Is that what's really driving you to say, okay, let's get more people focused on it, because if they're watching football and things of that nature, the house is burning and we got to fix it.
Well, that's part of it, but we've got programs that we have right now that's been around for a long time, like Social Security since 1935. I think Roosevelt knew we needed that. We needed something as a retirement for people, after World War I and after the Depression. We needed something. Now that's been around for a long time, but now it's going to run out. Does that mean in 9 years that you won't get a Social Security check? No, you'll get one, but you'll just get a percentage of it. That's a disgrace for the American people. You can't stand by and watch the people that the best generation that this country has ever known would be, I'd say, my parents, people 120 years old. Those people fought in the war, did everything they had to do, gave their life, gave a limb, was willing to do it, came back. We had a country, enjoyed building this country to what it was in its heyday. Eisenhower become president. Everything was great. Everybody wanted to work. Everybody wanted to come home to their family, bring the fruits of their labor home, and so forth. But we've gotten away from that. There is so much of this entertainment and the high dollar stuff that's out there, and everybody's looking at it. And that's just obtainable for a few. Then you say, well, they filled it up as 100,000 or 200,000. There's 338 million people here. If that was your audience, and you charge 5,000 a ticket or 10,000 a ticket, you wouldn't have sold out. So what they're looking at is a few of the American people, and those people make that money comes off the middle class. The poor people are on the bottom, unfortunately, and I have a lot of sympathy for them, and we try to help as many of them as we can. Then you've got the ultra rich. Now they don't care that a suite is $5 million and the other guy's suite is $5 million. They don't care if there's only 10 people in each suite. That's all right because they're rich. They don't care what color they are, what size they are. It makes no difference. They just don't want somebody like the bus driver, the carpenter in that suite. They want to draw that big distinction. And I think that's horrible for this country, because when it comes time, when it's really down to it, when your back's against the wall, like in a war and things like that, you need everybody pulling in the same direction. And when times are tough, and they're tough right now, and they're tough on the majority of the American people, there's only a few living that good. There's about the same majority as living on the bottom, but that group in the middle is getting closer to the bottom every day, and that's not fair. And that's who pays the bills, and maybe a news flash for the people wanting to be president of the United States. That's the people that elect you too. If the rest of them stay home, or if all of them come double, that's not going to move the needle. You better get those people in the middle to vote for you.
Well, and you mentioned those people in the middle, the lower end, the bus driver, as you say, and Social Security, that Social Security is not an entitlement. People paid into that. It's their money and they deserve it back. So how challenging is that going to be in the years ahead? It's almost like a double whammy, Joe. If Congress doesn't reduce the national debt, and if they don't save Social Security, not an entitlement, something that people paid into, how challenging is that going to be for the bus driver, the middle class, and the lower class?
Well, you take the people that's on Social Security. We've got about 70 million people drawing Social Security today. When the fund runs out, you'll have 75 million. Right now, we currently pay out 1.2 $1.2 trillion a year in Social Security payments. If we cut that 25%, take $400 or $500 billion out, that'll hurt your economy right there. That means those people won't go to the movie. They may not go out to eat. They're going to have to pull back. They can't help their children or their grandchildren. That's going to hurt the economy in itself. And that's a sad situation. If we don't reform it, like we had problems in the 80s with Social Security. It came to Reagan's attention in 1981, and Reagan formed a commission. I think Greenspan headed it up before he was Fed chairman. Took him to 83, and they came out and devised a plan that saved Social Security as it was for 50 years. That's why it goes from 83 all the way to 33. All right, so there's your 50 years. But now we're running up against it again. There's a couple of things you have to do, and I've got a good friend, Dave Walker, who was Comptroller General of the United States. He worked with Reagan. He worked with Clinton. He worked with Bush. They were close to Social Security reform with Clinton. And then Clinton had a little bump in the road in the White House, and he had to use all his collateral just to stay there. But they were close. They were fixing to reform Social Security to where we would not have this problem we have today. We have to make a couple adjustments. When you start out in 1935 with Social Security, and the average age for me and you, Steph, then was 59. Now our average age is 79. Think of that now. We're going to live 20 years longer. The program wasn't designed for that. You couldn't draw it until you were 65. So if you had to wait till you were 65, and most people didn't live to be but 60, shows you right there was some money in the surplus. Now, Congress lowered that to 62 some years later, but it still made a big difference. All right, so now here we are through technology and medicine, and thank God for all of that. We live 20 years longer. The program wasn't designed for that. We got to get our head out of the sand. We got to take another look at this. You know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, you have a large family. I have a large family. Hey, every one of them is just as important. Nobody's less important. They're yours. You created those children, you and your wife and God. It's up to you to take care of them. We need to take care of everybody in this country. And I'm not saying just give them a handout, but quit wasting money, giving money away, wasting the fraud and the abuse, and paying all this interest, because that's hurting the taxpayer. That's running our inflation to where it is today. We don't have a problem in this country taking in money. We take in trillions of dollars. We just spend more than we take in. No household, no business, to answer your question earlier. Nobody could do that and stay in business today. Not in this country or anywhere else in the world.
All right. Here in the United States of America. God bless America. Last question for you, Joe. I know, again, I think one of the big reasons why you do have credibility on this issue is because you're looking at this and solving the $34 trillion national debt problem, not from a partisan lens, not from a Republican lens, a Democratic lens. There's a huge election coming up this November, not only President of the United States, but every single member of Congress. So what would you say to people about the importance of doing two things? Number one, making sure you're registered to vote. And number two, making sure you pick someone for president or for Congress who is actually serious about reducing the $34 trillion national debt.
That's exactly what you have to do. That's why we're out here on this mission now. That's why we have the new contract from the American people. If the new candidate, if the new president, if the same one or a new one, if they don't change course for this country, we're not going to make it financially. And maybe it's 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road. I don't know. But your children and everybody that's not born yet in this country needs the same opportunity that I had when I was born almost 74 years ago. We need the same opportunity to make something out of our life or not, or at least have a good living, take care of your family, raise your children, buy a home, have the accomplishments that America has always dreamed about. We need that. And if that's the candidate that you need to find, who wants to get this debt under control? If that's their number one objective, they're going to solve a lot of problems for America. If that's their number two or number three or number four objective, that's not the person to pull the lever for. You have, whether man, woman, black, white, it makes no difference. You pick a person that knows that this debt is the number one problem facing this country. And if you don't, in my mind, you picked the wrong person.
Amen. And then, I think of my own family. They came here to America in 1965, greatest country in the world, and they suffered horrific hardships to give me the opportunities they never had growing up under the iron fist of a communist regime. And I just remember, Joe, when my entire family became American citizens, how proud they were, but even more so when they went to a voting booth and were able to cast a ballot in an American election. So I think that's really important to share with people about that. You have the power to vote these bums out if you don't like them, correct? We have the power to do that.
Absolutely. And I applaud you and your family for the accomplishments. What a lot of people in America just take for granted is we're Americans. And look at Ellis Island back in 1894, ran through 1954. 20 million people came to this country. Irish, Italian, Germans, all kinds of nationalities, just had a chance to be in America. I mean, you think about that. Everybody in the world wanted to be paid with U.S. dollars. They all wanted to come here to live and start their business and raise their family. We're the beacon. United States of America, when you look at the whole globe, when you get back and you look at it and you see it spinning, this is the bright spot. We just need to take the naysayers away and make sure that they start back doing what we've always done. You work hard. You pay your bills. You take care of the people that can't make it themselves. And you defend yourself. I mean, there's no reason why we leave ourselves so open that we have around this country. We're spending billions, if not trillions of dollars wasteful there. We are wasting so much money that we're asking the taxpayers for, and that's not fair. There's no two ways about it. When you bring your check home, you and your wife, and you look at your budget. Now, you can spend more than you make. And maybe every once in a while somebody does because a sickness comes up or emergency comes up at the house and all that. But don't do it every day. You can't sustain yourself that way. Then pretty soon somebody else has to go to work. And then pretty soon somebody else. Then all of a sudden we got a lot of people working and still not getting anywhere. We need to put more people back to work in this country that's got their heads screwed on straight and are healthy enough to work and help this country out. If we don't do that, we can't just cut the waste and the fraud and tighten our belt. We're going to have more income too, but we can't ask the American people for more. We can't go to them and tax them more because we're wasting the money anyway. It doesn't matter how much we put in, the government spends it. We've got to get a budget and stay there. And we have to have some constitutional amendments that bind them to it, that make sure that they have a budget and they adhere to it. Right now, there's no foul. They can do anything and everything, and they get to stay.
Yeah, I look at my wife and I look at our paycheck. I'm ready to set myself on fire. How much I'm giving to the government and what little I'm getting in return. To say
that's right.
So, well, this has been great. I really enjoyed this chat. This is our inaugural podcast. We're going to do it every week. The website's Joe from Texas, as you can see in Joe's background. And we're going to take a deep dive in numerous different issues and how they really impact America's $34 trillion debt. And the website is Joe from Texas. You're very active on social media, Facebook, the Twitter machine, Instagram. And so just, look up on the Google machine, Joe from Texas. And again, the website is joefromtexas.com. That's where you're going to see a lot of our podcasts and very active on social media. So I'm really looking forward to future chats. This was great.
I've enjoyed it. I look forward to next week.
All right. Sounds good. This is the Joe from Texas podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, the website, joefromtexas.com. And go to that Google machine and look up Joe from Texas, and you'll find all of our different social media platforms. Thanks for joining us.
The national debt's completely out of control. Look at the programs we have that we don't really need. Look at the waste. Look at the fraud. You can't keep adding this on to the backs of the American people or the taxpayers. It's wrong. I want to educate people about what's going on. They say our economy is sound. Well, that's a lie. There's no reason to lie to the American people anymore, but I don't think the politicians are going to tell you the truth. That's why I'm working to do something about it. Let's save America. Go to joefromtexas.com and help me spread the word.